Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this measure and I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I want to thank Mr. Mast of Florida who authored this measure, and I want to again extend my thanks to Chairman Royce, particularly for his very kind and generous words. We have worked for the last several years, so many years, on the Foreign Affairs Committee to try to bring peace to Syria. We have been frustrated in watching the dictator kill hundreds of thousands of his own people, innocent men, women, and children. And I think one of the most horrific days that I've ever spent in Washington was when we had Caesar, the photographer who was part of the regime but defected and escaped with his pictures of genocide and pictures of unbearable, unthinkable atrocities that kind of scarred my brain forever, and I know the same goes for the chairman. We will never forget it, and we will keep trying to fight for the people of Syria and try to bring the dictator and the people who allow him to do these horrific things to justice. It's been very difficult because the Russians have embraced Assad, but it's absolutely disgraceful, and I want to thank Mr. Royce for his kind words. He's said a lot of things about what I did, but couldn't have possibly been done without him as the chairman, working side by side, the two of us, pushing these important issues. And Syria has certainly been a situation that needed our attention. I just regret that we weren't able to do more to stop the slaughter in Syria. But I want to thank Chairman Royce, who has just been fantastic in terms of having a moral compass to say that what's going on should not stand, and calling attention to the atrocities. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Mast. Mr. Speaker, the crisis in Syria has gone on for far too long, a civil war that has killed at least 500,000 people, displaced more than 11 million Syrians, and stoked instability and extremism well beyond Syria's borders. Iran and al-Qaeda are on Israel's doorstep. Refugees have overwhelmed Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan, and the human suffering inside Syria is still unimaginable. Just 2 weeks ago, an American family learned the tragic news that their daughter was tortured and killed in Assad's prison. Layla was one of thousands of cases of enforced disappearance in Syria. The Assad regime has had plenty of help, as this resolution points out. The Syrian regime was on the ropes earlier in the conflict when Iran sent thousands of fighters to defend its ally, Bashar al-Assad. Iranian-backed Hezbollah has been battle-hardened, gaining fighting experience in Syria, displacing communities wholesale, and remaking Syrian society in their image. The Russian government came in to save the Assad regime when they again seemed to be losing the war, and the Russians sent fighter jets to target civilian population and infrastructure, hospitals, schools, markets. We have heard from Syrian doctors who were delivering babies as airstrikes threatened them from above. And then when civilian defense workers, the white helmets, showed up to clear the rubble, Russian bombs targeted the emergency workers too. That's just shameful. And it's not over. Idlib, a city of 2 million people, many of whom fled other conflict zones, is now under threat of annihilation. Truth be told, terrorists have a strong presence there, emboldened by the war crimes of the Syrian regime and their allies. As Assad seeks to consolidate power and territory, millions of innocent people stand in the crosshairs. And there's no military solution to this conflict. Assad may believe that he can bomb his way out of this, but the regime's presence will continue to be a magnet for extremists. Iran's permanent presence in Syria will only lead to further instability. And let me be very clear, we cannot and should not rely on Russian assurances to remove Iran from Syria. You know the old adage, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. The only thing that the Russians can be trusted to do in Syria is foment further instability on behalf of the regime. This resolution comes at a critical time It calls on the administration to work toward a political solution to this conflict, and it seeks to build American leverage in negotiations by opposing international reconstruction funds that would support projects in Assad-controlled territory. Lastly, I want to thank the many Syrian American groups which I've worked closely with, who have been doing whatever they can possibly do to stop the carnage and the evilness of the Assad regime. I will be continuing to work with the Syrian American groups. Hopefully we can one day restore freedom and democracy to that beleaguered land. So I'm pleased to support this resolution, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from New York reserves